Well, I'm so excited to have you on Conscious Conversations. So, Conscious Conversations is an extension of Conscious Concierge, as you know. And on the podcast, we talk about health, wellness, and spirituality and really invite people to discover their truth, which was the 6 words that I did at Krista's retreat, which we'll chat about. But there's so many paths and there's so much information out there. So my hope really with the platform is always that people, know and understand that wellness and their healing journey is unique and very specific to them. And so that's really my intention of why I share what I share here, just in case you didn't know.
Oh no, I know your whole vibe and I love it. And I love it.
I'm so excited to have Beth Gulotta today, who is a New York City therapist and podcast host of Quiet the Clock. And Quiet the Clock is a podcast for women defying societal timeline pressures and living life on their terms. I love it. I've watched your episodes and just feel it's so, so good. The episode with you and Krista was so good.
Oh, well, as we know, she's incredible.
Queen Krista. Which, for anyone listening, actually, that's how Beth and I met. So we met at Krista Williams' retreat. And I remember meeting you at that day. I sat at your table and I was just like, okay, this is my girl.
Oh, yeah, I know. I remember. I just got chills because I remember that exact moment too.
Yeah. I was like, she's from New York. Gulotta sounds Italian. I was like, I'm getting an Italian vibe.
Totally.
But yeah. So what did anything come alive for you in that retreat?
Oh my God, so much. I share on my platform, we were talking a little bit before we hopped on, is I've been in such a long fertility journey and there's a lot that can get internalized, grief, reflection, all these things. And it was really a moment for me to pause and be out of that and really reconnect with myself and also reconnect with so many incredible women. So just to be in community with so many incredible women was just, gosh, I can't even say one thing that came from that retreat because so many things came from the retreat. And what I've said to a lot of people about that retreat, it wasn't even just us being in session that was so powerful. It was all those micro moments outside of session. Like we were just saying, the moment that we met or walks on the beach or just sitting by the fire, having dinner together. It was just everything about it was healing and therapeutic and incredible. So if anyone ever has an opportunity to do a retreat or do one of Krista's retreat, I highly, highly recommend. But I think it was a real moment for me to just kind of reconnect with myself and sort of slow down because life can just be, especially in a fertility journey, just go, 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 go. What's the next thing? What do I have to do? Time is running out, which is what we talk a lot about on the podcast. So just to slow down and connect with myself, with other women was just such a blessing to be a part of.
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, I'm so excited to dive into this subject. This has been really timely for me since I just turned 35. And so I've been really wanting to have this conversation about timelines, about fertility, about egg freezing, everything that you've been dealing with. And I love that you're a therapist too, because that obviously adds a nice flair to dissect it all and analyze it. And so I'd love for you to start with taking it back to what led you to therapy, because I know you got into it a little bit later when you turned 30, 31. So just, tell us a little bit why you chose therapy. And then what inspired you to create Quiet the Clock.
Sure. Oh my gosh. I think this is such a good question and maybe people would be surprised by my answer, but I never knew I wanted to be a therapist. It wasn't something ingrained for me when I, little. You hear people say I think I was always the friend that people came to, but I was never I always wanted to be a therapist. I graduated college. I got the opportunity to move to Europe for a year. And when I came home, I had majored in finance because that's what everybody said you should do. So I started a job in finance and I worked there for 2.5 years and I couldn't have been more miserable. And so that really started the path on me finding what am I going to be happy doing? So it was a series. I'll save you the time because it's a long journey. And actually tomorrow we have a podcast coming out that I go through the whole journey and timeline. Cool. But it was a series of trial and error. I 3 different masters, multiple different jobs. And really what I say to a lot of people is I knew more about what I didn't want to do than what I did want to do. And I really, through trial and error and failing and figuring out what I didn't like, it eventually led me to, which ended up being my 3rd master's in a mental health counseling class. Wow. And then I knew in that moment I loved it. But where I see a lot of people get stuck is I don't know what I want to do. And I share that part of my story because I didn't either, but I had to go out there and try and fail and do. And I feel like that's where a lot of people get stuck. It's like, I have a zero idea what I want to do. And it's like,
Totally.
you only kind of figure it out through living and trying. And so I found, I sat in that class and I'm like, this is it. And then that, that career in itself was a whole journey. I did school, I did all my clinical training at an outpatient program. I worked for other people's private practices. And then I started my own. So by the time I started my own practice, I was probably 35, which, a lot of people will say that's like late in the game to figure out your career, but was my journey. And I will tell you, I could not be happier with my career. Like it was meant to happen for me that way. And another narrative, like, I'll hear a lot, and I've held myself, is like, you could think about how long that took me to get there. And you could say I wasted time, but nothing is wasted. Like, every experience that I've had makes me a better therapist, makes me a better person, makes me more relatable to people sitting in front of me. So I think any life experience is valuable and not a waste of time.
Yeah. Tell us about Quiet the Clock.
Yeah. So I started I never knew it would be a podcast, but I personally was going through my own journey of being 34 and single, watching everybody else around me get married and have children and buy houses, and being like the only single one still out in the city, like partying. So I was living that personally, at the same time, simultaneously seeing that a lot in my caseload in single women, later 30s. And so many people were feeling the same way. I'm like, we're all feeling the same way. We all haven't aligned with this like curated blueprint that's supposed to apply to everybody, and we're feeling badly about it. It's like, we need to have conversations around it. So I just sought out more conversations and started talking to more women, in kind of the same boat as me and some of my clients. And one person said, you should do a podcast. And I was like, huh. And it was probably a year later that I finally like went for it and it did it. But it was born out of that. It was born out of just like, so many women were feeling the pressure of the timelines, feeling like their life hadn't aligned with this blueprint, or like meeting these milestones when we should. And what that created emotionally for people was heavy. And so, it was kind of like, we're all feeling this. No one's talking about it. And anyone that's feeling it is certainly not alone. So that's how Quiet the Clock was born.
I love that. It's so important what you're doing and what you talk about on your podcast, and I just like absolutely love it. The theme for my community this month is about timelines, because I want the conversations to be the things we're not talking about, like the uncomfortable truths. And I just really feel like the timeline pressure we face comes up in so many different avenues, about like, we should be married, or then we should be by 30, or we should have a kid by 35. And then it creates like so much pressure. What would you say is the biggest timeline pressure that you see women facing today, or at least that is in your orbit?
I think there's two. I think it's definitely relationship, and hugely, hugely, hugely motherhood for women that want to be mothers.
Totally.
What's challenging, and what I've learned through my fertility journey, is that, and I know you feel the same way about this stuff as me, is that there's a lot of misinformation about our fertility and our fertility health. And there's really a lot of narratives that are fear mongering, and bad narratives that are out there that tell us 35 is the cliff. And it's just not true, right? So just even having that narrative perpetuated applies even more pressure, because if you think the timeline is 35, then you're really crunched for time, right? If you're entering your 30s and you think by 35 I have to have children or I'll never be able to, then you're really against the clock. So there's a lot of work to be done to dismantle these like fear narratives, but I would say those are the two biggest.
Yeah, I just like so love that you're doing this, because for me, I remember at 30 feeling like a failure, because like my relationship had just ended. And so at 30, it was like, I should be getting married. And so now my life is over. And then once you hit, I feel like women, you get over the 30, you get to 31, 32, and you're like, oh, it's not the end of the world. But then, 33 to 35 was like, oh my God, the urgency of fertility snuck up on me and was like completely, and has been haunting me too. And it's like, I feel like we deal with those two the most, of like, I should be married, and then I should have children. And then the pressure of, and then science says it's urgent, like, so it's just,
the science. Oh God, the science. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like our culture is like loaded with shame. If you're 35 and single, it's like something's wrong with you. And it's
Yes.
just really felt by women, I
Mhm.
feel.
Oh my God, it's so heavy. And that's like, again, like I said, like the emotional weight of that. And it's interesting to listen to you because one word you've used quite a bit now is a word I don't let my clients use in session, which is the word should, right? We should have
Mhm.
this, we should do this, we should be, because that is the thing that is so judgmental, right? And as we
Yeah,
know, the things that we say to ourselves and are felt in our body are internalized and impact our health. And so
totally.
when we use the word should, we are it's doing something to our minds, to our bodies, to our emotions. It's applying so much judgment, pressure, shame. And
Yeah,
we get this should from outdated blueprints, from family, from culture.
yeah,
The should comes from somewhere. The problem is
totally.
we're not unpacking the should. Like, why is that the should? Who told me I should? Why
Yeah,
should I? Do I
yeah,
even want to? And so we really need to be slowing down and getting curious and asking ourselves, do I even want these things by this time? And
so true.
I think because there's platforms like yours and hopefully mine, we're having more conversations that will hopefully encourage people to stop and pause and really reflect. I've had incredible guests on that have met all the milestones by the time they should. They arrive at it and they're like,
What the fuck?
I don't
Yeah,
want, I'm going to burn it all down. I don't even want any of this. And
yeah,
so, it's really, really important that we kind of start to get more in tune with our internal voice and the one that's got, allowing that one to be guiding our decisions and what we actually want. But unfortunately, there's so much external pressure narratives
so much. Yeah.
influence.
And I think that the fertility one is more, almost arguably more challenging because of the science behind it. Like there's not science behind having a partner and being in a relationship, but the metrics and the percentages and like the statistics that they're sharing about 35 and egg freezing and all of that, it's like that part. I mean, talk a little bit more about why you say 35 is not a real cliff.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing quickly before I answer that question is that when I went in for my first consult at 37, which is
Mhm.
2 years past the cliff, it was terrifying and really hopeless to see those statistics because they put these
Yeah,
graphs and charts in front of me and it was like, "Psh, you've got no shot, lady, but like give us your $15,000." And it's really discouraging. So I definitely had that experience too, where you see the numbers, you see the statistics, and I left there being like, well, what the fuck is the point? Like, why would I even do this? What I will say is that I got pregnant naturally at 39 years old. So I defy the statistics. A lot of women defy the statistics. And if you go digging, you will find a lot of women that are getting pregnant naturally in their
yeah,
40s. It is possible. What
yeah,
I'll also say is that through this fertility journey, and I am so grateful, I've been able to find some silver linings in how shitty this has been. I have gotten way more well versed in holistic and functional medicine in how our body can
Mhm.
heal itself. So
Yeah,
I do think that we have more opportunity to preserve our fertility. Beside, I still believe in egg freezing wholeheartedly if that's accessible
yeah,
to you, but I do think that there's still such a huge opportunity to heal our body in a way that preserves our fertility and makes it possible
totally.
beyond 35, 37, 39, 40. I,
Yeah,
I wholeheartedly believe that. I have seen it personally. I have seen it in other
same.
women.
It's very similar to SSRIs. There's a lot we can do before we're jumping to SSRIs, right? Like gut infections, like checking the hormones in the body, like are we
Mhm.
filled with toxins and plastics and glyphosate? And it's with fertility, my functionals, because I have, 8 or 9 in the practice, in the network of concierge, they all are working on fertility. And when the other treatments are saying like this is you're hopeless, there's a lot of other things, or even before going
Totally.
into. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I love that you say that, because that's a huge part of my world. And on that subject, one thing I was like, I really want to ask you is like, what I'm seeing, being in like the spiritual spaces, there's a lot of people in the holistic community, spiritual, holistic, they're different, but they have similar beliefs, which is like, God's got me, the powers that be, higher power, if it's meant to be, it will. But then there's the medical advice that's like, act fast. And, that's kind of where I'm at, where they're like, act fast. If it's meant to be, it will be. And that was very hard for someone like me who does live in the holistic spaces. How do you help women navigate the tension between spirituality and science?
Mm.
Do you? Do you help
Yes,
them with that?
yes. I think spirituality is such a huge part of it. And I'm also thinking to like a voice note you and I had, and you mentioned
Mhm.
the spirituality. I'm like, yes, that is
Mhm.
everything. It's everything. I
Yeah.
think what has happened and what happens for me and what happens for a lot of like, again, type A, ambitious goal oriented women, we want to control things. So we want to do all of the things. We want to act fast. We want to be proactive. What can I do? What can I buy? What supplements? What, like that is our wheelhouse. Like that is what we know. And you try to take a
Yeah.
woman that is like that and is wired like that and has been geared like that for so long, where, you know, it's probably a lot of reasons why a woman is successful. And you try to tell her
Yeah.
surrender,
Hmm.
let go of control, relax. That's when it's
Yeah.
going to happen. It's very, very difficult. I really do think what I really want to see is an integration of both things, because I do think that, again,
Yeah.
there are things that we can be doing for our health, for our bodies, for our nervous system,
Yeah.
while also kind of being more in surrender. And in my own personal journey, I was like clutching the wheel, like, give me all the things to do. Like, this didn't work. We're going to try somebody else. We're going to do something else. And it sounds so ridiculous as a therapist and a mental health expert. Like, I did not lean into the
Yeah.
surrender until very, very recently. And I have, you know, I had another miscarriage in March, and that one like brought me to my knees. And I think it was God, universe being like, you gotta
Yeah.
trust, you gotta stop. Like, you got to
Yeah.
like still do all the things that's helping your body and your health, but like you have got to like lean into a
Yeah.
little bit more trust. And, you know, if I look back, which sometimes we forget to do, when I look back, the best things in my life have come when the pressure is off, when I've
Totally.
released the control, when I've been in like radical acceptance of where my life is at, in gratitude with where my life is at, even if the things that I want had arrived yet. That is the moment they came to me. And that's very powerful, but it's also
Yeah.
very, very true. And I say that all to say it's not easy to be there. It is, and it has been for me recently, like a daily, conscious, intentional choice
Yeah.
and a lot of self talk to be there. So I really do try to help women integrate both things. I think they're
Yeah.
both very useful and very powerful. But when we're too much in control, I really don't see.
Yeah.
That's where I think things don't happen when we're clutching too tightly.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a, these are the conversations I'm in all the time, just in general with myself and then with any clients that are coming, of working with functional medicine, ancestral medicine, the plant medicines, and then the conventional. There's a lot of really the identity piece of like, oh, I'm a person that's holistic. I'm a person that works with plant medicine and ancestral medicine. And then I'm a person who works with conventional, functional. So like, the whole point of what I tried to invite people in these conversations is like, it's going to look like a puzzle, you know, and there's different pieces and
Mhm.
pull from energy healing and you're going to pull from ancestral healing. You're going to pull here. And it's like your own little cocktail. But even I got really lost in the sauce of the identity of like, I'm not going to take antibiotics and I'm not going to do this. And, you know, I think chronic illness, people who deal with chronic illness and people who deal with fertility issues, there's a similarity where at some point we have to surrender to the powers that be. Because for me, I've dealt with chronic health situations with my stomach and my gut the last year where I have all the tools. I have all the top people and experts. And I would always say, I have all the experts. I have all the practitioners. I have all, you know, the shamans in the mountains and the jungle. But at the end of the day, it still wasn't healing. And I was still experiencing being really swollen. And at some point, I thought about fertility because I was like, you know what? This is probably what women deal with, because I just threw my hands up and I was like, I have no choice but to connect with the God of my understanding. And that has been my focus the last year, is just building a relationship, because the next phase is going to be motherhood. And
Mm.
I'm going to need that real relationship with something beyond myself. And so I see a similarity with women struggling with fertility and women who struggle with autoimmune, chronic illness and things like that. Just like we got to build that relationship.
Yeah, it all goes together and we can't leave one piece out, right? You can't just be,
Yeah.
and that's where I kind of, I won't say I failed. I learned. That's where I learned. Like I put too much focus on one and not the other. So they all
Yeah.
have their place. They all have their importance. So it's like you said, it's a puzzle, and it's like all the pieces. You got to find the pieces that work for you and that fit
Yeah.
together. But again, it's not just
Yeah.
Western medicine, maybe not just Eastern. It's not just control. It's so you got it. Yeah, it's all like integrating all of it together is and finding again what's specific to you. What works for me might not work for you or work for somebody else. But an openness to find. It's taken me well over a year and a half to get it all my puzzle together.
Yeah.
I'm not. I was inclined to say right, but that's not right. But
Yeah.
the right. And I need medications. I'm on thyroid medication. I will need an immune protocol for pregnancy. I'm down for all of that. Like I recognize that that's going to help me, but I also has the spiritual component. I have things that regulate my nervous system. Like multifaceted what I'm doing, and I think that's what works.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like anything. It's just, yeah, it's always going to be like a multi-prong approach. But yeah, I just love this conversation. I think like we really are at a point, I feel like, when we turn 35 where we just start to like panic. I mean, I'll speak for myself and I know a lot of my friends, and it's been beautiful to see women in their 40s who are just like, no, it's just not the case. And so I really love that. And I know you've been telling us bits and pieces of your story, but do you want to go a little, deeper into what your experiences has been so far? You got pregnant at 39, you had froze your eggs at 37.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, I froze my eggs at 37. That was a little nuanced because, I've been with my partner for 10 years, and there was a conversation to do embryos and he wasn't quite ready to do that. And I share that because I want to normalize, like sometimes we're not even on the same timeline as our partner. And for my partner and I, getting on the same timeline with kids was a challenge in our relationship, and we eventually got there. But I froze at 37 for my own sort of peace of mind because I was panicking. And I will say that after freezing them, there was this weight lifted, and there felt like I did buy a little bit more time, and I could kind of, pause on this really hard conversation in my relationship that was taxing on my relationship. We finally got aligned, and he's like, let's see what happens. And I was pregnant. I now, what I've been through now, how what a blessing and miracle and grateful. I was pregnant like weeks later.
Wow.
So naturally pregnant at 39, delivered at 40. Um, and then again, took some time to get on board with get on board with having a second. So we started trying again at 42. But what's interesting, and it's probably because a lot of the external messaging and narratives out there, I didn't even think to try naturally at 42. We went straight to the eggs and made embryos and started there. And what I'll say is IVF has not worked for me thus far. I've had 2 failed transfers and 5 miscarriages. I've had a couple natural pregnancies. I've had a couple pregnancies through IUI. But it's been a real journey. It's been very challenging on many levels.
Yeah.
I've learned, yeah, it's the fertility world. I'm still in the thick of it, and there's so much I'm going to share
Yeah.
more when I'm out of it, but it's
Totally.
a broken, dark place, is what I'll say about the fertility world.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's been really difficult. But I think this is where like looking at life as like no time wasted and kind of having that spiritual component. I
Yeah.
do believe I'm meant to be on this path. I do believe that even when there's days, I was literally saying this to a friend yesterday. I was like, I still cannot believe that this is my story. This is my journey. I couldn't, especially how easily I got pregnant with my son.
Yeah.
But, the main thread that's held me together, and I believe this even more today as I've leaned more into like spirituality and God and faith, this is meant to be my path. It is meant to be my path. And there is a huge purpose to this path for me. So as sad and devastating as it has been, I think there's even bigger than me. There's a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
But it's difficult, it's really hard, and the grief is heavy. And grief period, when we're talking about timeline and timeline pressure and like kind of life not unfolding in the vision that you had imagined, there's so much grief in that. There's a lot, and we need to acknowledge that. We need to talk about it and hold it and feel it and be in it, because it's such a true emotion, and there's no you're allowed to feel that. You're allowed to feel sad if at a certain age you don't have a partner and you want it. You're allowed to feel sad if you wanted to be a mother by a certain age and you don't have it yet.
Yeah.
We have to process it, all of it. I would say let's not get stuck in it. Let's not shame ourselves for it, but let's feel it. It's real. Like, it's real to feel that grief.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think, I mean, I dealt with it a lot. I was just constantly feeling like I should come home from Colombia where I was living because I was 30, 31, 32, 33. And I was just like, well, I better get home to America and find a partner. And it was just like, I wasn't even ready for that. I was perfectly, happy. And I just felt like I should, and then same as soon as 35 hit, when I was supposed to freeze my eggs and I got kind of like mysteriously sick and have been dealing with a lot of, gut and stomach issues where they were like, I can't even, we wouldn't even freeze you right now because you're so inflamed. It wouldn't be like healthy. And then I'm like, oh my God. And now, like being in, and I'm in the spiritual work, I've done all the ayahuasca, and I'm still better in the trust portion, but also just that pressure of like, oh my God. And I feel like, I know you'll relate to this, and I think you and Krista were talking about it, but I think we also get really, I know I'll speak for myself, get really hyper focused in what we're trying to accomplish. So then we're just missing the moment. And this
literally
is
was what I was going to say next. 1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. And when I thought about starting this podcast, it was one of the biggest intentions was to safeguard people from that, because everything that I wanted arrived: the partner, motherhood. And while there was a lot of my 30s I did really enjoy, there was always this cloud over my head of like, is it ever going to happen? It hasn't happened yet. All the uncertainty. And I really also grieved those moments where I was so stuck in what I didn't have yet. And I was totally missing out on how fucking awesome life was. Like, life was beautiful. So yes, that happens so much that we miss out, or we don't see, or we don't acknowledge all that we have now, because we're like, I need this one thing and I don't have it yet and I have to have it. But it's like, but I have an amazing family. I have an amazing friends. I have like spontaneity. I have freedom. There's all these things we do have. The problem is that we don't, as a society, celebrate those things. I think we're doing a better job of that, but we have what we need to undo is placing so much importance and achievement on partnership, marriage, motherhood, parenthood, like the house, the career, right? Like, we have so much more depth than that, like you go out and you meet someone, they're like, well, what do you do for work? And are you, ask about a trip they went on, ask something else than these, but we put so much pressure and like, this is the level of success if you have these things. And if you don't, your life is not meaningful or successful.
Yeah. And I was just walking with a friend earlier this morning who was, 27, 28. And I was saying to her, like, if I could go back, I don't have regrets, but the one thing I wish I could just share with myself, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 even, is just like to enjoy. Like, I was living my best life. I was in South America. I was thriving. I was the fittest I was ever was, but everything, exactly what you just said. I had this rain cloud always over my head that was like, is it going to happen? And I'll be happy when I have the partner. I'll be happy when I wasn't dying for motherhood, but I just wanted to know it was going to happen. I wanted to really be sure that I was going to be on, a normal path. And at the same time, it's like the I'll be happy when sneaks up all the time. Like, my current loop is like, when concierge is making what I was making in corporate, then I'll be able to breathe. And it's just, it's a fallacy. It's an illusion. It's just there's always another hurdle to obsess over. So I think this is one of the main things I try to bring attention to, because I struggled so much, is, again, right now I could be saying like, I'll feel so much better when my stomach isn't swollen. I don't feel sick every day. But the truth is there'll be something else.
And that's the thing, is like, we're moving too quickly to even slow down and understand what we're saying to ourselves, right? So you think about the I'll be happy when is like, you're literally making a choice to delay happiness. Like,
Yeah.
why can't you be happy now? And it's like, we speak to ourselves all day long and we're not attentive to what we're saying to ourselves. So we're literally like internalizing and putting into our body and our nervous system, like, I can't be happy now because I don't have this thing. You know,
Yes.
it's so interesting when I reflect things like that back to, you know, in therapy session, they're like, holy shit. When you hear it out loud and you hear someone else say what you're saying to yourself, you're like, oh shit, like that's fucked
You're like,
up.
yeah.
Yeah. And listen, like also being in a partnership and having motherhood is not the solve all for your happiness. It's not like you meet the partner and you're like, it solves all the things. It's not like, you know, it brings, if it's a healthy, secure relationship, it sure it adds a lot of things to your life, but it also brings up other things like conflict
It's so
resolution,
hard. Yeah.
compromise, merging two lives. Like there's also like struggles. Same with motherhood. It's beautiful and wonderful and it's the best thing ever, but it's tiring and your life changes and your career changes. So there's no, to your point, like there's always going to be something. And I think another thing I've learned through this fertility journey is being in more gratitude for like small things and slowing down and kind of reprioritizing like what are the things that I deem successful? What are things that I deem as accomplishments? And, you know, I was sharing with you, I said no to a big career opportunity. And for me, that was an accomplishment to say no, because what it said is I'm saying yes to what's a bigger priority. I'm saying yes to not burning myself out, stretching myself too thin, because what is successful to me now is to feel good,
Yeah.
to feel healthy, to feel fulfilled, rested, all the things. Like
Yeah.
we have to really, that's something else I do with my clients too, is like, we got to define success on our terms, because the blueprint and society is like college, marriage, career, you know, those are the only boxes. And it's a lot of work to undo, on like rewire, but like success should be different for everybody, you know, and defining it on your own terms. Success might be freedom and flexibility and independence. And that might mean a relationship is not what I want right now.
Yeah. My boyfriend and I are having these conversations so much because it is, you know, another subject that I know is so top of mind for us, like New Yorkers, is the subject of career and having success in your career, and then motherhood, and like we're delaying motherhood more and more because we are so driven. You know, I can definitely speak for all my New York friends. It's like we have this insatiable hunger to make something of ourselves. And similar to you, you know, I started concierge later. I was in television sales, advertising sales for my whole career. And so I was already like successful on paper. And so doing this, I started all over. And now it's like the race to get this off the ground before the kids come. And it's like, honestly, I'm just starting to reprioritize and revalue, like, isn't motherhood, like, wouldn't that be like one of my greatest accomplishments of all time? Like, so, you know, like refocusing on that. But I know that women really struggle with like, am I going to regret pushing it back to further my career? Or, you know, is a motherhood all that I'm striving for? What about my career? And just this balance. It's like, this is
Yeah.
like, we're talking about this in the community too.
You know, it's so interesting. Well, a couple things. I think again, the wiring, especially as a New Yorker, we're such a hustle culture, right? So it's
Yeah.
like when you're in that environment, you get so sucked into it. And then you're comparing, like, you know, this person worked 12 hours, I got to work 13 hours. And like, this is what it means to be successful, especially in New York City. We've defined it as this hustle, complete burnout culture, which is
Yeah.
terrible if we're talking about health, fertility, nervous system. It's terrible. And sometimes you have to get yourself out of that environment because you get so sucked into it. You think that this is what I have to do. I have to grind. I have to hustle. And, you know, it's not easy to pull yourself. It really isn't. It's very difficult. What
Yeah.
I'll say about my experience with motherhood, because I was such a career oriented, you know, same hustle, success, accomplishment, build, grow. I was floored by the fact that after having my son, not that I could care less, but like it
Yeah.
surprised me. My career was like way down on the priority list. But sometimes that's not something you can know until you go
Yeah.
through it. And again, just allowing yourself to experience it, get curious about your own experience.
Yeah.
Um, but I do fully believe it changes, but there's room for both. Like I'm still doing my
Yeah.
career, I'm still doing my podcast. my son is my top priority, having another is my top priority. But I do really feel like if you want both, you can make both happen.
Yeah, I think you said something earlier about like redefining success. Like Krista talks about this too. Like for me, success was obviously, and I've talked to her about this too, like numbers and titles and stuff like that. But when I left corporate and I left all of that, like now to be able to like spend my days like organizing them how I want. And like of course the money's not there where it was, but it's like being able to like just breathe in the day and not be running on the subway to get to my office by 9 a.m. to be doing all these like it's just the work that I'm doing now lights me up. And it's like the flexibility and the freedom. It's like for me, it's been worth leaving that level of money. And I have full faith that it will come back. But it's also like I've gotten really clear on like, do I need that to be a success? I be happy. Isn't the ROI how many people that I've helped and supported and who've told me their life has changed? Like that's a better ROI to me.
Right. You know? But you learn that the numbers and the metrics and the dollar signs is the success, right? Like if your metric is how many people you've touched, you're like, you're crushing. You're already hugely successful because you touched so many people, you change people's lives. Like you're just an incredible human. Like you touch so many people. But again, it's like, it's really, we have to dismantle these sort of old structures of what's successful. What are the metrics for success, right? A lot of times you are just looking at, and then we have these platforms in place where it's like how many views and how many followers and all, you know, it just perpetuates that same old outdated model of what we deem to be successful, what we attach our worth to, what we attach our success to. And again, it is not easy to kind of dismantle and rewire and create a new construct for success, but it's hugely relieving, healing, and helpful to do that because it's success authentic to you, not to anyone else.
Yeah, it's so important and so true. And it's so hard to like drown out the noise of like, what society says that you're supposed to be doing. But, you know, I just think and know with all my heart, like we're all here on a completely different journey. We have our own blueprint, which is found in our bodies and in our soul. And in order to access that, like we have to connect with ourselves and, you know, our creator of whatever that is means to you, because I just really do not believe we have the same blueprint. So life is like about figuring out like, is your destiny to be, you know, in motherhood, or do you so choose? Like sometimes the word destiny for me is hard. It's like, do you choose to have the experience of motherhood in this life? Like, okay, great. Like then you'll find that experience, you know, and also allowing for, you know, the choice and also whatever life presents for you and just trusting that like that experience is going to be amazing. And I think, just again, bringing it back to like faith has been really top of mind for me. I really wanted to talk about the subject of settling. It's like, what does that even mean to someone, right? It's like, what does settling mean to you? Because I feel like there's this interesting between, I don't know, women maybe minimizing their needs or like silencing their desires out of fear, maybe scaring someone away. I'll speak for myself. For me, when I was navigating what does settling mean, it was like, on one hand, I was seeking perfection and like that was delaying me from finding someone. And then on the other, there's the concept of somebody settling and kind of like being with somebody because of the timeline. So do you see that a lot in these conversations with women in this time frame?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's difficult again is because there's so much external influence and noise. We're not getting clear on what we really want, whether that's, do we want this type of part? Like, what are our needs even? We don't even know what our own needs are. So when we're not connected to that, we're going to be influenced and pulled and guided by, well, I should be with this type of guy. I should be with a finance guy that makes a lot of money, or, you know, then it becomes really kind of disconnected from what we actually need. So first and foremost, before we even talk about settling, is like, we have to understand exactly what we need for ourselves, right? There's like these concepts and ideas of the type of people we should be with or the type of relationship we should have. And that is so nuanced and complex because you can get into attachment theory, you can get into childhood trauma, you can get into, you know, family systems and all that influence all of these things. But yeah, I think there's a lot of external noise that lead people to abandon their own needs and settle for something that doesn't fulfill those needs, whichever way it looks like. If it's what you've kind of felt for yourself personally, or it's just like time is running out and like anyone is good enough.
Yeah.
I see
Yes.
that. I see that happen a lot. I see that not just in relationship, I see it in career. And what happens is there's so much fear. Like Chris is incredible. She's such a good model of like being in full trust, knowing her own worth, being really connected to herself and her needs. And she's clear on what, is, what she deserves and what she wants. Um, but for other people that don't have sort of that foundation of trust and faith, we do get influenced by the time and the clock and running out of time and being afraid that if I wait, it'll never come, being afraid that if I leave this career, I won't find something better. I mean, I've worked with people that have stayed in relationships for like 10 plus years because they're so afraid they'll never find someone else, full well knowing like zero needs are being met. So
Yeah.
fear plays a huge factor into why people settle, why people stay, why people don't get out of situations, relationship, career, job, whatever, that are not healthy.
Yeah. What advice do you give to women who feel like they're running out of time?
It's a great question. There's just so much. What first I'll say, there's probably so much beauty in your life right now that you're overlooking and not seeing because you're hyper focused on what you don't have yet. And I say that knowing I did that myself. And that's one thing I want to pay forward to other people is like, let's not miss out on what are
Yeah.
already beautiful and amazing. And I would also say, like a little like reflection exercise is there's probably a point in your life that validates everything happened as it should in the timeline that it did. And someone prompted me, maybe it was Krista, who was like, when have things not worked out? And I'm like, never,
Yeah.
never. They
Sounds like
might
it.
not work out in the time that we had wanted, but we didn't even get into patience. That's a whole nother topic. But if you kind of reflect, there's probably a moment or experience in your life where it worked out. It didn't work out in the way that you had imagined, but it did work out. So I encourage people to kind of find those sort of validating experiences, like things kind of bring themselves together. And I think, another one is like the fertility cliff it is not 35. I promise you it is not 35. And I would, if you're feeling the crunch of that, like find platforms that talk about, there's great platforms out there that share stories of women getting pregnant naturally in their 40s. Like, someone that's like 35, I had my son at 40. You have then if that's where you're at, there's 5 years and so much can happen in 5 years. And, don't miss out on now.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, patience is key. And I've watched some friends go through fertility journeys and it ends up working out. And I think of like all those years that they were, so stressed and unhappy. And I think of myself, and with different areas of life. And so I'm so glad to have gone through, this chronic illness situation that I've been going through, and also all the other I'll be happy when moments that have led me to really have this foundation of like, okay, I'm going to need to have patience or grace, maybe in the journey with motherhood, possibly. Who knows? For me, maybe it can happen quick. But I just feel, yeah, this conversation is so helpful for women that are, trying to be mothers, that it's far away, that it's very close, just to really know and trust like their own journey, their own timing. And yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say a couple other things is one is life can change and happen so quickly. Like where you are now can be so radically different. And I've had this happen with guests, like literally radically so different from a year now. I've had guests come on just had a relationship in their 30s, turn around a year later, they're engaged and had a baby, like one. So life can change very, very quickly. I think too, where we limit ourselves is because there's all this external messaging and societal pressure and blueprints is the vision is so limited. Like our vision is so limited. If you would just expand your vision to other possibilities, whether that's other type of partners, people you might not consider, other paths to motherhood, like expand your vision. We are so limited of like, it has to look this way. It has to be this. Motherhood has to look like this. Family building has to look like this. There is so many beautiful paths to partnership and beautiful. I've had amazing guests on who they had a vision for motherhood and it happened a completely different way. And they are blessed and they're so grateful and they're so happy. So expand your vision. We are so limited in how it has to look. We're missing out on all these other beautiful opportunities and experiences and visions.
So true. There's so much. I could keep going on and on forever with you, but I just want to say, like, yes, that was my story with my partner. Like, he was my friend, so he was not in my vision. I was like, no, it's going to be this. He's going to be older. He's going to live in Colombia. He's going to be and my mom was like, you're going to miss the most incredible man on planet Earth if
and
you
I met your partner for 5 seconds and I loved him.
Yes. And it was because I just talked to a friend the other day. She's 35 and she's just like not meeting someone because she has like this idea. And I said, like, really, like, I really, with all my heart, really hope that you can also maybe find in you to like be open to what it could look like, because I never would have thought. And I'm so blessed and so grateful and so happy. And yeah. Well, this was just,
I mean, Rob is never somebody I would have chosen. Never, like never,
yeah.
never my type, but also there's probably a lot of internal work to understand why your vision is so limited. So I would say that is very important too. But once you expand, you make room to invite in so much more.
So much more. Oh, this is like, I mean, like we just scratched the surface,
I
but
know.
Where can people find you and Quiet the Clock?
Yes. Please check us out on YouTube. We're on YouTube, Quiet the Clock, and then all socials, Quiet the Clock Pod. We just launched a YouTube membership that we're looking to grow and just build a community of women going through the same things like you've built your amazing community. So yeah, that's all the places you can check us out. And thank you so much for having me. Yeah. I have to have you on my podcast. Yeah, we have just scratched the surface.
Oh my God, there's so much. And obviously, as always, for all things to figure out what is next or best for you in your healing journey, your spiritual, mental, physical health journey, please reach out to Your Conscious Concierge at Your Conscious Concierge on Instagram, yourconsciousconcierge.com, Conscious Concierge on TikTok, and find me on School, Her Conscious Collective, for my women's community.
Oh, amazing. Well, you are doing incredible work. Incredible.
Thank you so much.